As Christians, we often hear that the Muslims also believe in the virgin birth of Christ, which sounds like something we would have in common, until you hear the actual story as is told in the Quran. If you're a Christian, by the time you finish watching this video, you'll understand why the virgin birth they believe in is nothing like the one that we have been taught in the Gospels. Let's begin with the Quran. So the Lord accepted her with a good acceptance and made her grow up a good growing, and gave her into the charge of Zechariah. Whenever Zechariah entered the sanctuary to see her, he found her with food. He said, "O Miriam, whence comes this to you?" She said, "It's from Allah. Surely Allah gives to whom he pleases without measure." Much like the Catholics, the Muslims believe that Mary had been blessed before Jesus was born. Though the Bible is silent about Mary before she became pregnant, there were stories written about her and baby Jesus from the 2nd century AD on that are not considered authoritative for a variety of reasons, including the date of authorship and problems with the doctrines expressed within. One such book is known as the Infancy Gospel of James, also known as the Protevangelium of James, written sometime in the mid to late 2nd century. Check out this passage from the book and compare. "And Mary was in the temple of the Lord as a dove that is nurtured, and she received food from the hand of an angel." An interesting parallel indeed. While the Bible and the Quran are similar in many ways, here the Quran is showing an agreement with a book that was considered to be the work of imagination by the early church fathers. If this were the only similarity, then it might be marked as a coincidence, but there is more. The Quran in Surah 344 elaborates on how custody of young Mary was decided. It says, "This is part of the tidings of the things unseen, which we revealed to thee, O messenger, by inspiration. Thou wast not with them when they cast with arrows, as to which of them should be charged with the care of Mary, nor wast thou with them when they disputed the point." Oddly enough, this is not unlike the account in the Infancy Gospel of James, which offered this piece of information. "Go forth and assemble them that are widowers of the people, and let them bring every man a rod, and whosoever the Lord shall show a sign, his wife she shall be." In both accounts, divination was used to determine who should take care of young Mary. It's also noteworthy that Zechariah's role is similar in both accounts. He was a guardian of sorts, a priest caring for a child until she started to become a young woman. Remember, in the Gospels, it was Zechariah and his wife Elizabeth who take Mary in for a visit while she was pregnant with Jesus. I'm sharing this because I think the parallels are uncanny. And with all due respect to the beliefs of my Muslim friends, it seems to me that Christian legends might have influenced Muhammad's supposed revelations concerning Jesus and Mary. I'm not suggesting Muhammad actually read the Infancy Gospel of James, but that living in a trade city as he did, Muhammad may have heard the same stories being told as oral legends. After all, Bibles were pretty much a church book. It wasn't like you could buy one in your native language and study it. Think I'm crazy or stretching this comparison between the Quran and the Christian legends a little too far? Well, check this out. The following is from the Quran, chapter 19, verses 16 through 33. It's a little long, but please bear with me. "And mention Miriam in the book when she drew aside from her family to an eastern place. So she took a veil to screen herself from them. Then we sent to her our spirit, and there appeared to her a well-made man. She said, 'Surely I fly for refuge from you, to Allah, if you are one guarding against evil.' He said, 'I'm only a messenger of your Lord, that I will give you a pure boy.' She said, 'When shall I have a boy? And no mortal has yet touched me, nor have I been unchaste.' He said, 'Even so, your Lord says it. It is easy to me, and that we may make him a sign to men, and a mercy from us, and it is a matter which has been decreed.'" The Quran actually starts the story in a similar manner as the Gospels do, with Mary receiving the knowledge that she was going to give birth to Jesus. The only difference is the Quran doesn't have Joseph written in there. It paints Mary as a virgin girl whom God decides to impregnate with a baby as a sign to the Jews. Okay, it's pretty close to what the Gospels say, right? So she conceived him, then withdrew herself with him to a remote place. And the throes of childbirth compelled her to betake herself to the trunk of a palm tree. She said, "Oh, would that I had died before this, and had been a thing quite forgotten." Then the child called out to her from beneath her, "Grieve not, surely your Lord has made a stream to flow beneath you, and shake toward you the trunk of the palm tree. It will drop on you fresh ripe dates. So eat and drink and refresh the eye. Then if you see any mortal, say, 'Surely I have vowed a fast to Allah, so I shall not speak to any man today.'" And she came to her people with him, carrying him with her. They said, "O Miriam, surely you have done a strange thing. O sister of Harun, your father was not a bad man, nor was your mother an unchaste woman." But she pointed to him. They said, "How should we speak to one who was a child in the cradle?" He said, "Surely I am a servant of Allah. He has given me the book and made me a prophet, and he has made me blessed wherever I may be, and he has enjoined me prayer and poor rate so long as I live, and dutiful to my mother, and he has not made me insolent, unblessed. And peace on me be the day I was born, and on the day I die, and on the day I am raised to life. Then the crane claims she had given birth under a palm tree, and the baby Jesus told her to shake the tree to get fruit, and told her there was a stream beneath her to drink from. This is completely different than the Gospels. But again, the details of the story are not without precedence. Let me point us right back to the legends disregarded by the church as myth. The following is found in the 20th chapter of the Gospel of Pseudo Matthew. Then the child Jesus, with joyful countenance, reposing in the bosom of his mother, said to the palm, O tree, bend thy branches and refresh my mother with thy fruit. And immediately at these words the palm tree bent its top down to the very feet of the Blessed Mary, and they gathered fruit from it, with which they were all refreshed. And after they had gathered all its fruit, it remained bent down, waiting the order to rise from him who had commanded it to stoop. Then Jesus said to it, Raise thyself, O palm tree, and be strong, and be the companion of my trees, which are in the paradise of my Father. And open thy roots a vein of water, which has been hid in the earth, and let the waters flow, so that we may be satisfied from thee. And it rose up immediately, and at its root there began to come forth a spring of water, exceedingly clear and cool and sparkling. You see, the palm tree and the stream of water is also found in the Gospel of the Pseudo Matthew. But Muhammad connects the miracle of the palm tree and the stream to Mary giving birth to Jesus. The Gospel of Pseudo Matthew says that the baby Jesus worked the miracle while Joseph and Mary were traveling with him to Egypt. So I've demonstrated a connection, or at least the possibility of a connection, between the Quran and the Christian legends written by authors whose writings came long after the events and were dismissed as imagination by the early church fathers. While it's likely Muhammad did not copy these books, it seems very likely that he heard oral legends. Legends that may have been warped away from the originals themselves. It's clear that these comparisons have many striking details in common, even if the whole is dissimilar. So let's put it all together. We have established that there is a difference between the Gospel accounts and the Quran's account of Christ's birth, clearly showing contrast between the Christian and Islamic belief. We've shown that the miracles attributed to Jesus and Mary in the Quran can be found in the Christian legends, but not in the Bible. If the Quran was accurate, then we have to believe the Jews who heard baby Jesus announce his coming as a prophet of God didn't take custody of Jesus, anointing him as the coming Messiah right then and there based on those signs alone. And if the Jews rejected the claims of baby Jesus, we have to wonder why they didn't simply decide to stone Mary for adultery and kill the baby as a spawn of her sin, possessed by the powers of Satan. Additionally, if Jesus doesn't have a father, then didn't God send him into this world born a bastard? That's not the way God would do things. Finally, if the Quran was true, we'd have to believe that the Gospels themselves are corrupted, making the story Christians believe into a lie. The Muslims wholeheartedly believe that the Gospels are corrupted. But if that is so, one has to wonder why a liar would not include the core elements of the Quran story. Why wouldn't the Gospel authors include a fantastic detail like a talking infant in their story? It's possible they didn't know about the story, but with Mary reportedly hanging out with the apostles after Jesus' death, it seems unlikely that she would forget such a striking detail. So we've covered a lot of ground here, but there's one essential point that we haven't detailed. In the Gospels, Jesus is clearly the Son of God. The Quran declares that God has no son. The Quran explains that Jesus was made like Adam. God merely spoke him into existence, and that was that. Surely the likeness of Jesus is with Allah as the likeness of Adam. He created him from dust, then said to him, Be, and he was. This is the truth from your Lord. So be not of the disputers. But whoever disputes with you in this matter after what has come to you of knowledge, then say, Come, let us call our sons and your sons, our women and your women, and our near people and your near people. Then let us be earnest in prayer and pray for the curse of Allah on the liars. Well, surely this is the true explanation, that there is no God but Allah. Now, the Quran says Jesus was created just like Adam. The Quran describes how God created Adam, stating that we created man from sounding clay, from mud molded into shape. But Jesus wasn't made of clay or mud. He was made of flesh and blood. However, the point that the Quran is trying to establish is that both Jesus and Adam were created by the will of God. Surely that is true. But that's where the comparison falls apart. Adam was made of dirt. He was not made as an infant, and he did not grow up from childhood. He was simply made as a man. Adam had no mother or father because he was not born, he was created. Jesus, on the other hand, did have a mother. She had to carry this baby in her womb as he grew, and she had to endure childbirth. She had to raise the child, and he did not start his ministry until his 30s. He was not made like Adam in any similar way, other than it all starts with the will of God to create them, or any one of us for that matter. Jesus had a father. When I say Jesus had a father, I'm not talking about Joseph, whom God raised up to foster Christ as his own. I'm talking about the one who made Mary pregnant. I do agree God willed Mary to be pregnant. I'm not suggesting God had sex with Mary in a physical sense that a man would have. If he had done that, she wouldn't be a virgin. But he did impregnate her, and the one who impregnates a woman is the father of her baby. Just like if a man donates sperm to a sperm bank, even though he never has sex with the woman who finally gets that sperm, he is the father to that baby. Now, to my Christian brothers and sisters, I know Jesus existed before his physical body existed. He is the Alpha and the Omega. But I believe we have to cross one bridge at a time with our Muslim friends. As Jesus said to Nicodemus, I have spoken to you of earthly things and you do not believe. How then will you believe if I speak of heavenly things? Finally, as if it were a sign from God showing us the spirit which led Muhammad with that passage, there is an interesting call to prayer for a curse from God against those who say Jesus is the Son of God. And while Jesus also teaches us to pray for our enemies, it's always done in love. We aren't to pray for curses against them. In Luke 9, we see two of Jesus' greatest disciples, that being James and John, ask Jesus if they should summon fire from heaven to fall on people who weren't welcoming Jesus as they should have. Jesus rebuked them for that, because that isn't how he wants us to treat our enemies. Muhammad was clearly not hearing from the Holy Spirit sent from Jesus. In closing, I think we've seen some strong contrast between Christianity and Islam here, and I'm hoping that you'll join in the discussion so that we can reason together. Until next time, happy Jesus Day. God bless and peace out.